I would like to start by giving a Grace Yashikoyach to the Ma'arganin, especially for Lahagdil Torah La'adira, for giving me the koyach and the schus to be Meifetz Torah and the Feshluchim throughout the world. The title for the Shir today, and perhaps over the next 2 weeks, is about the Jewish home. So I do have to clarify it, because when we discuss this, the Jewish home is a very big title, and I want to clarify that there are certain things that Be'ezer Hashem Yisbarach I hope to discuss, but there are many items that are included in the Jewish home that I understand, and I know that over the shiurim over the past months were discussed, and are not included in the next, won't be included in the next 2 weeks of shiurim. And we have to stay focused and know what our target of our discussion is. So the Jewish home that we won't be talking about, the Taras HaMashpacha and Chinuch and Kedusha and Tznius, the mumchim in that field, which is an expertise that you need to have a special expertise. I understand and I know that many shluchim, many rabbanim spoke about that. We will stay focused on, as the advertisement was, on the physical, the structure of the Jewish home, the binyan hagashmi, and try to touch upon what the halacha speaks about the physical Jewish home, how to build a house, and where to build a house, hilchos shchenim, the structure of a home, and so and so. And obviously, Choshen Mishpat is hundreds of halachas, Nezikim and Shchenim and all these dinim are very complex. So to try to fit it into an hour or two is kind of impossible. So we're going to try to do Rashi Prakim, and as the Rebbe would always quote the pasuk, B'bchinas ten lechacham v'yechkam b'id, and perhaps in today's shir it would actually be a lot of agadata, a lot of inyanim to draw people into this conversation, and maybe next time there will be more of the halacha, and we'll try to zero in at least in 1 or 2 or 3 items so we should have a davar shalom in a couple of halachas. Some of the halachic inyanim that I want to make clear that we will not talk about, even in the physical aspect, which are very complicated, and you have to have shiurim just on those topics itself. When you're choosing where to live, obviously, you know that Gemara tells us that there is a special mitzvah to live in Eretz Yisrael. And the Gemara says, La'ilam yadar adam b'Eretz Yisrael, even if it's in a city where it's not Roiv Yehudim, over living in Chutz La'aretz. Why some people are makpid to do so and why others are not? So that's a machlokes, a poskim machlokes, and there's many discussions about that, and that's something that's a whole topic for itself. But I'm just, when you're dealing with the issue of building a home, where to choose to live, so I want to tell you what we're not going to discuss too, because that's a whole topic for itself. Another thing that I have to clarify is I'm going to discuss the halachas as it's brought in Shulchan Aruch. Obviously, there is the concept of Eis Lasis Lashem Heferus Seresecha, meaning to say that in Yonim of Mesiras Nefesh, in Yonim to Uislesh a fire, sometimes when there's we're here to save a situation, there is a Tzav Ashah where Heferus Seresecha, you're here to help. And in many cases, where the Frierdiker Rebbe and the Rebbe sent Shluchim to situations where a lot of the inyanim that are discussed in Shulchan Aruch are not exactly what the Rebbe would send people to cities, even though I was told la'achreina that many shluchim were asked in neighborhoods when they were choosing where to go, what neighborhood should they choose to establish their Chabad house or their community, and the Rebbe actually led them to a place where there is closer to a shul, etc., etc. But I'm gearing it more to advice when you have somebody that's coming to you to ask you what is the Torah perspective, where a person should live as he's becoming more frum, etc. What does Torah say as a community? Not somebody who's going on shlichus on Mesiras Nefesh. Mesiras Nefesh has its own set of laws. Yeharik Val Yaver. It's a different ball game. It's Eis Lasis Lashem Meifeiru Seresecha. It's well known. The Pirush from the Kotzker Rebbe on the Mishnah have a Goyla Limkaim Torah. The literal translation is that a person has to go to Golus and to find a Makom Torah. He has to leave his house to go to Makom Torah. Whereas the Kotzker Rebbe actually translated into what we might call it as a Lubavitcher word. He says, have a Goyla. Everywhere you go in Golus, flip it around. Make Golus every place a Makom Torah. And that perhaps is what the Rebbe wants us to do. We go anywhere we are and we make it a Makom Torah. But again, the dry letter of the law, when people are asking us advice, and we have to guide people where to choose, how halacha, or people are looking to move as youngsters into a new neighborhood, what is the guidelines, what Torah tells us where and who and what and when. Another thing, as I mentioned before, Choshen Mishpat is hundreds of simanim. When you buy a house, there's the Dinei Kinyonim, there's Dinei Hasagas Gvul. Hasagas Gvul is not only once the house was already bought. If you know that somebody is about to offer a price, he's negotiating a deal with a real estate agent. There's ganz nadinim of ani hamahapich b'charada. There's ganz nadinim of sections in Choshen Mishpat that have to be dealt with. That's not something that you could discuss on one foot. So we are going to zero in on specifics, and hopefully we'll clarify specific halachas. All right. After the first Hakdama, let me get to my second Hakdama. Poischim b'dvar malchus. The Rebbe's kapitel that we started saying Yud Aleph Nissen, which is Hallel, a continuation in Hallel, we say Hashamayim Shamayim LaHashem V'Haaretz Nasan Livnei Adam. The Eibishter, the Shamayim is LaHashem, Ruchnius, spiritual things. V'Haaretz Nasan Livnei Adam. The Eibishter gave Livnei Adam Haaretz. So the Gemara comes in Yevamos Daf Samach Gimel, and the Gemara says, Kol Adam she'ein loy karka, any person that does not have karka, einay Adam. Because the Pasuk says, Ha'aretz nasan livnei Adam. What does it mean, ein loy karka? So, the simple Gemara means, avodas ha-karka, he has to develop karka. It's interesting that in the Sikha, in Parshas Miketz, Tavshin Yudches, in Sichas Kodesh, the Rebbe writes, the Rebbe says like this, Vegin bayis, the Rebbe doesn't say about karka. Vegin bayis, concerning a home, Zak di Gemara, Kol Adam she'ein loy bayis, einay Adam. Azoi bringt sich the Lashon in Chassidus. In Chassidus, when they quote this Gemara, when they quote the statement, they say it concerning a home. In Gemara state the Lashon, Kol Adam she'ein loy karka einay Adam. Aber in Chassidus bringt sich the Lashon bayis. Und der Maker of them, says the Rebbe, is the Tosfos on this Gemara in Yevamos. What's the point of a karka? What's the point of owning a karka? You might think it's to develop and have farming. No. Tosfos over there in Dibra Maschil She'ein, Tosfos says, karka livnois olav. To own real estate is to build, to own land is to build a house on it. Zok the Tzemach Tzedek, as the Makar HaMaimer Kol Adam Bayis einay adam is the einzige mocker der Tosfos Hanal. The statement that a person has to own real estate, a home, is this statement in the Gemara Yevamos Samach Gimel, Kol Adam she'ein le karka einay adam, really means Kol Adam she'ein le bayis einay adam. So now we see that owning real estate, owning a possession, a home, makes you an Adam. That's the statement of the Gemara, in Gemara Yevamos. The Gemara in Brachos comes along about this pasuk. The pasuk, the Gemara says again, Hashamayim shamayim la'Hashem va'aretz nasan l'vnei Adam. The Gemara in Brachos Daf Lamed Hey Amud Aleph says, Rabbi Levi Rami. Rabbi Levi has a stira. Ksiv, in one hand it says, L'Hashem ha'aretz u'malaya. Hashem is in control of the whole world. Ha'aretz u'malaya. Everything, even the aretz too. And now you say, Va'aretz nasan l'vnei Adam. And for the Gemara, loy kasha. That's not a stira. Kan koydem bracha, kan la'acher bracha. That's what the Gemara knows. You have to make a bracha on food. That before, if you're making food, if you're making bracha on eating food, then it's nasan livnei Adam. The Eibishter gave us the right, livnei Adam, to be part of Aretz if you make a bracha. La'achar bracha, it's nasan livnei Adam. Kaidem bracha, not. If you look a statement, a couple of lines before that statement, there's another statement in the Gemara. The Gemara says, Kol hanena me'olam hazeh b'loi bracha. Anybody who has any benefit from any part of the world, because Hashem ha'aretz u'malaya, everything in this world belongs to Hashem. Who are we to take something that belongs to Him and use it? Anybody who uses any part of this world, olam hazeh b'loi bracha, it's a bad thing. So the Gemara says, "My takante." How could you fix up a blemish that you did? Yelech etzel chacham. He should go to a chacham. So the Gemara says, it's too late. It's already a done deal. He made the damage already. So the Gemara says it's not after the fact. Was heißt Yelech etzel chacham? Yelech etzel chacham means that a person before anything, Yelech etzel chacham yilamdenu brachos. A person before he has to eat, he should go learn Hilchas Brachos. Kidei shelayavay lidei me'ilah. So he should not use something that belongs to Hashem. He should know, do I have permission to use it? So if it is in food, that you have to go to a chacham to know what Hilchas Brachos is, so he should not be lavay lidei me'ilah. The same is in Hashem ha'aretz u'malaya. Anything in the world. Anything in the world means to say, ha'aretz nasan livnei Adam. The bias, kol she'ein le bias einay Adam. You have to go, etzel chacham, you have to go to the Shulchan Aruch and see what Shulchan Aruch says, Yelech etzel chacham v'yilmaid hilchas brachos. What's the hamshacha, what Torah says, what are you allowed to do? What is the Torah tell you to do? Vu megman lebim, vu tarmenish lebim. What is asur al pi Torah? What is mutar al pi Torah? And the Gemara says in Baba Kama. The Gemara says in Baba Kama Daf Lamed, and a quote that the Rebbe quotes at many places: "Hai man the boy lemevi chasida." One who wants to be a chassid, yikayim mila de brachas. And we all know that the Gemara brings three opinions. Either he should fulfill Mila de Brachas. Mila de Brachas means Hilchas Brachas, or Islan Hilchas Brachas. Or Yekayim Mila de Chasidusa. Mila de Chasidusa is the quote that the Rebbe would always quote about Pirkei Avos. He should learn Pirkei Avos. He should do Lefnim Meshuras Adin. If you want to be a chassid, you should do Lefnim Meshuras Adin. Or Yekayim Milan de Nezikin. he should fulfill Milad and Nezikin. Milad and Nezikin is he should be careful, Baba Kama, Baba Metzia, Baba Basra. He should make sure not to damage, not to harm anybody. Chasida, to be a true chassid, you have to be mekayim these three things. And it's brought in Sifrei Drush that the pasuk says, Even shleima v'tzedek yilecha. So in Sifrei Drush says, Even is a Rosh Tevis. Even is a Rosh Tevis. Avos, brachos, and nezikin. If you dus durchgelent, avos, brachos, and nezikin, and you study this well, and you live a life in these ways, tzedek yilecha, wird sein gut. Story is told that Rabbi Yosef Ber Soloveitchik once said that his Zayda, Reb Chaim Brisk, was he was Mekurev, he was Karev to Chassidus Chabad, and he said that he was closer to Chassidus Chabad than most people thought. And he said he once heard that he said about a certain Rebbe that you could see that when he says a bracha, he's so engrossed in his bracha that he Pashat cries from the Hisrakshus. And he explained like this: what did Chassidus really want? And what did especially Chassidus Chabad want? So he quoted this Gemara. When the Gemara says, Hai man de boy lemevi chasida, lekayim mili de brachas, the Gemara did not only mean lekayim mili de brachas, fulfill hilchas brachas. Every 5-year-old kid in yeshiva, we teach them, you have to say shak only a b'dvari before you eat a candy. What's the chiddush? That Hai man de boy lemevi chasida. So he interpreted a very nice chasidish pshat. The Gemara is saying that the kavanah is that a yid has to say a bracha as a chassid sagt a bracha. Mehevi chasida mitay chesrakshus. So us shluchim, us chassidim, when it comes to these halachas, we have to be chassida. We have to be even in these halachas, especially these halachas. Lifnim mishuras hadin, we have to be mehevi chasida. We have to do it careful. Okay, this is all Divrei Hakdama, 21 minutes of Divrei Hakdama. Abba Yisai, I always try to say that from all the religions that we find, it's interesting that the Yiddish religion is actually the most down-to-earth, the most realistic one. I personally bring a raya from this, that we find that Yom Kippur, the holiest of days, mincha time, for whatever reason, Shulchan Aruch tells us, the halacha tells us, that the Kriyas HaTorah that we should read on mincha is arayas. Why? So it's brought in Shulchan Aruch, practical reason. Because the halacha says, mir verstehen dein Yetzer Hara. Halacha says, we talk to the Yetzer Hara, and then the Yetzer Hara, nafshe shel adam, the Yetzer Hara has a very big issue. This is what he makes people deal with. So if so, Af Yom Kippur, on Mincha, that's what we want you to read about. And there is a beautiful Tosfos Yontif in Pirkei Avos, when it says that when it speaks about the Nisim, when it speaks about the Nisim that the Kohen Gadol had in the Beis Hamikdash, it says, a gewaldige Nes that happened in the Beis Hamikdash. The Kohen Gadol did not become a keri b'Yom Kippurim. Stellt sich the Shaila. The Kohen Gadol did not become a keri b'Yom Kippurim? The Kohen Gadol? Yom Kippur? Achas b'Shana? The Kohen Gadol? And the answer, which the Tosfos Yontif says, the Tosfos Yontif in the Mishnayos says, Hainu hach. The Kohen Gadol. B'Yom Kippurim. The Yetzer Hara knows that too. And after Lachas, he comes to fight them. The Kol HaGavoya B'Yoser, the more Kedusha there is, the more the Yetzer Hara comes in there. So the fact that the Kohen Gadol Vertnish Tamei Af Yom Kippur is a grace on this. So this is a raya that the Yiddish halacha, the Yiddish hira, the Yiddish Torah is down to earth. So here we're going to talk very practical things. And I'm going to speak about some Yesodis in how to choose a neighborhood based on what the Gemara says. And some of the things I'm just going to show you, an interesting observation. You see how it's quoted in the Gemara. And the Rambam, perhaps you're going to say the Rambam as a doctor and the Rambam as a Paisik. It's interesting. I didn't see too many Mefarshim explaining why the Rambam did this. There is a Reshima that the Gemara in Sanhedrin Daf Yud Zayin Amud Beis makes what a person has to look for before he chooses which neighborhood to live in, what has to be in that neighborhood. And then the Rambam also makes the list, but the Rambam makes the list different than the Gemara. And I didn't see too many Mefarshim explaining why the Rambam makes the list any different. So here is a Gemara in Sanhedrin Daf Yud Zayin Amud Beis. Says the Gemara, Kol ir she'ein ba asara dvarim halalu, ein Talmid Chacham rashai loder b'seicha. Any city that doesn't have these 10 things, a Talmid Chacham is not allowed to live there. Now, again, this is a Gemara in Sanhedrin Daf Yud Zayin Amud Beis, and the Rambam, it's in Hilchos Deis, Perik Daled, I think, Halacha Chav Gimel. Now, the Mefarshim say that a Talmid Chacham is not allowed to live there. Why is it only a Talmid Chacham? So a Talmid Chacham is sort of an Isser. For everybody else, it's not an Isser, but it's just a practical advice. It doesn't make sense for you to live there when you hear what the list is. Number one, again, I'm going to read the list as it's in the Gemara. When you look at the Rambam, the Rambam's list is a little different, and it's just a nice piece of information to do some research why the Rambam did it different. Number one, the Gemara says, Bezdin makim va'onshim. You need to have that there should be a Bezdin, a court, that punishes. In other words, we want to have law and order. We need to have Seder. On a Seder, just Wildkeit, it can be dangerous. Number two, Kupa shel tzedakah, nigbis b'shnayim, u'mischalekes b'shloisha. We're not going to learn now Hilchos Tzedakah, but in Hilchos Tzedakah we know that for it to be a proper accounting and honesty and trustworthy, we need to have honest gaboyim, and no person could do fundraising himself because you never know if he's honest. There's ganzen dinim in who's trusted to be a fundraiser. That's for Hilchos Tzedakah. But the concept that there is a kuppah shel tzedakah, if you're going to choose a community, there has to be a community that there is a proper kuppah shel tzedakah. What's a proper kuppah shel tzedakah? Where it gets collected by 2 people, so it's trustworthy people. It's not a single person pocketing money, and it gets distributed by 3 people. That's a din in Hilchos Tzedakah. Number 3, again, the order could be discussed. Is it in Seder of importance? Right now, we're just quoting it as it is in Gemara. Obviously, a Beis HaKnesses. You need to have a shul. You should not live in a place where there's no shul. And eventually we'll get to the importance of davening in a shul, even if you may have a minyan in your house. There is an Indian to go specifically into a shul because of a shachen toiv, because of roiv am, etc., as we'll get to it hopefully by the end of this year. Ubeis hamerchatz. And the next thing is you need a bathhouse. Obviously, a lot of these things are not applicable today because today we have bathrooms and showers. Ubeis hakisei. Ubeis hakisei is a outhouse. We have a Baruch Hashem, we have this luxury. Roifei. Roifei, Rashi says it means a moihel. The Rambam actually says it means a doctor. So you should be close to a hospital. If you live far away, and God forbid somebody gets sick, you're in trouble. V'uman. Uman is somebody who's able to make his dam, take out blood. Again, it's just, there is a machlokes gersois, if it's roifei uman or it's just two separate people. V'lav levar is a sofer. V'tavoch. Tavoch is a butcher, food. Umalame tenoikis, and malame tenoikis is a teacher. Rabbi Akiva says, af mine peria, you also have to be able to get fruit. And there's actually a Gemara in Eruvin that says you also have to be close by to be able to get vegetables, because you have to be able to have food. All right. Now, the Rambam, as I mentioned before, you get the point from this list. You can't live out in the boondocks where you can't get food, you can't get medical supplies. You have to, this is pashut praktish geret. Some of these things may not apply today. Bathrooms we have, maybe if you say the online schooling has solved a lot of issues. We're close enough to shuls. We have Baruch Hashem stores everywhere, but you have guidelines with what to deal with. When the Rambam says the list, just for the sake of the lumdis, I'll tell you the way the Rambam puts the list, so you should appreciate this. 1 second, please. And I'm guessing it's because of who the Rambam was. The Rambam, number 1 on the list, he puts Roifei. The Gemara puts Bezdin number 1 on the list. Look at the Rambam puts more Gashmiistic things on the list first. The Gemara puts all Ruchniistic things. It's interesting. The Rambam puts number 1 Roifei, number 2 Uman, number 3 Beis Merchatz, all hygiene things, cleanliness, health. 4 Beis Merchatz, Beis Hakisei, and number 5 he even puts something in that doesn't even say in our Gemara. Mayim Mitzuyim. There has to be accessible water. There has to be water available. I mean, obviously, it makes sense. You can't live in a place where there's no drinking water. Number 6, Beis HaKnesses. Number 7, Malam B'Tanekis. Number 8, Lav Levar. Number 9, Gabet Staka. Number 10, Bezdin. So it works, Punk Kapidrich. What the Gemara puts number 1, the Rambam puts number 10. All right, so here we have our list. Very good. So we have a shtickle guideline, where we choose where we should go. As if we have these things in a community, that means it's not some hick town. You could move there. Not necessarily true. There is a Gemara in Psachim, Daf Kuf Yud Beis, a very interesting Gemara. Again, showing you how practical Torah is. Just beautiful. The Gemara says like this: Tana Rabbanan, Shiva Dvarim Tziva Rabbi Akiva Es Rabbi Yeshua Benoi. There are 7 things that Rabbi Akiva told his son Rabbi Yeshua. And most of the opinions say it's Rabbi Yeshua ben Karcha. This is in Gemara Psachim Daf Kuf Yud Beis Amid Aleph. I'm only going to quote 2 of the things that are Negeah to us. Number 1, the first one is Negeah to Talmidei Chachamim. those who sit and learn. The willst lernen, and you're looking to buy a house, sitz man nicht in Manhattan, on Park Avenue, sitz man nicht on Wall Street, and honking horns. If you're going to learn, if you want to learn Al Torah V'Al Avodah, and you need Menuchas HaNefesh, says Rabbi Akiva to Rabbi Yeshua, Al Teishev Begoiva Shel Ir V'Tishna. Do not sit on the high point of the city and study. You're never going to be able to learn. Find yourself a calm area. Find yourself a house where will be relaxed place. Dort was the kind of learning. Don't go to a noisy area. Practical. Fine. That's if you want to learn. How about any other practical advice? Listen to this. Ve'al tadur be'ir sherasheh talmidei chachamim. Do me a favor. I added those words. Do me a favor. Do not live in a city if the people leading the city are talmidei chachamim. If the mayor of the city is a Talmid Chacham, you won't have sewer water. What does a Talmid Chacham know? What about sewer water? He won't fix the bridge. If the mayor of the city is learning Daf Yomi every day, how is he going to know to fix the airport? Versteht doch, he's a mufshit. Practical advice. Rabbi Akiva tells Rabbi Yeshua, do not live in a city that the mayor, that the Rosheh Atalmidei Chachamim, Rashi says it as it is. The Tarid Begirsa, the mayor is going to be busy learning. V'lei Tarid B'mili D'Tzibura. He's not going to be busy in community matters. Very simple. You can't believe the Gemara is saying this. The Gemara is saying this. Halacha is saying, Torah is saying this. Now, how could Torah say it? We put Talmidei Chachamim on a pedestal. We put Torah on a pedestal. Talmidei Chachamim. And yet we're saying that they should not be the Rosheh. Yeah. They should be the Talmidei Chachamim. They should be the shir givers. They should be our leaders and who we look up to. But to pay the sewer bill, to make sure that there's lights, that's not their job. They don't understand it. Oy vavoy if they take care of that. And you should not live there. That they'll semish kashem et barsht. But you also have to know, don't run away. Don't ignore the fact. It's very, very, very important that there should be Talmidei Chachamim. It's very, very, very important that there should be a Talmidei Chachamim. The Gemara in Brachos, can you stop this? The Gemara in Brachos, Daf Ches, the Gemara says a fascinating thing. The Gemara in Brachos, Daf Ches, and Aleph says, La'olam, obviously again, this is not if you're going on Shlichus. If you're going on Shlichus, you're going b'koyach ha'mishaleach. And like the Rebbe would always say, you're not only going b'koyach ha'mishaleach. The Rebbe would always say, your futzu ma'inasecha chutz. It doesn't mean that the Mayan stays in 770 and there's a pipe going out. The Mayan itself is in wherever you are. So the Rebbe himself is there, is where you are in Shlichus. But if you're just looking to leave and you're looking to establish a home elsewhere, and this is what you're giving advice to a person not going in Shlichus. So the Gemara says, La'olam yadur adam b'makayim rabbi. Gemara Brachos. A person should always, Chelik Aleph. A person should always live, Brachos Chelik Aleph. A person should always live b'makayim rabbi, where his Rebbe lived. Why should he always live b'makayim rabbi? Listen to this very simple advice. Says the Gemara, Shekol Zman Sheshimi Ben Gera Kayam, because as long as Shimi Ben Gera was alive, Loinasa Shloima as Bas Parei. Shloima HaMelech, Chacham Mikol Adam, the son of David HaMelech, was held in check. He was held. He didn't do anything wrong because his Rebbe. The Gemara says that the Gemara in Gittin says, in Gittin Daf Nun Tes, it says that Shimi ben Gera was Shloima HaMelech's Rebbe. So as long as Shimi ben Gera was alive, Shloima didn't do anything wrong. As long as Shloima was there. But when Shimi ben Gera left, Shloima goes on and marries Bas Parei. So the Gemara asks, really? V'hatanya al yadar? I don't understand. You're telling me a person should live next to his Rebbe. A statement earlier, it says you should not live next to your Rebbe. So when yeah, when no, listen to this. And for the Gemara, you're right. Loi kasha. Ha the kayafle, ha the loi kayafle. Listen to Rashi. Im kafuf hu le rabbi. This is a tremendous lesson. Im kafuf hu le rabbi. If you're ibe gegeben to your Rebbe, if you're going to listen to your Rebbe, as Rashi says, likabel teichachasoi, if whatever your Rebbe says, you are going to listen to, yadur etzloi, you should live next to your Rebbe, and the Rebbe will keep you in check, and the Rebbe will lead you in the right direction, and live next to your Rebbe and love mitten Rebbe. The imlav and Ribbono Shel Olam. If you don't listen to your Rebbe, toiv le'israchek mimenu. Move away. Lebnish Rebbe. Why? Because demost v'yehi shoygeg. Because by then, v'stazayna shoygeg. V'al yiyeh moizid. Next Rebbe, you have your Rebbe telling you what to do. You're a rebel. Rachmana litzlan, you're a rebel. Not a rebel, a rebel. If you don't live next to your Rebbe, you're a shoygig. At least you won't be as bad. So, by a Rebbe. If you're kafuf to a Rebbe, you're the Reitz Rabbi. If you're not kafuf to your Rebbe, you should move away. Again, practical advice. Weitergegangen. In Pirkei Avos, we know the famous Mishnah. Abaisai, it looks like today we're giving way too much Agadata. Okay? Agadata, I think, is Moishech the Lev. Maybe that will help out. I saw the Shaila about mikveh. We'll see if it will answer it this time. If not, I'll get to it. Blin Eben. Next time. In Pirkei Avos, there is the famous Mishnah that the Rebbe quotes many sichos. Perek Vav, Mishnah Tes. Perek Vav, Mishnah Tes. Omar Rabbi Yosi ben Kismo. Pamachas hayisi mahalech b'derech. I was once walking. Pamachas hayisi mahalech b'derech. Right? Famous Mishnah. And what happened? And you know the whole long story. And somebody tried to convince me to move to another city, and he was going to give me elef alafim dinrei zav. Oh, he was going to bribe me. And the response was, "Imatanoisnli kol kesef v'zav avonim toives umagarli yeshabeolam." It sounds like guzmis and you give me all the money in the world. Eini dar ela b'mkaim Torah. I'm only going to live in a Mokim Torah. As he quotes the pasuk, "V'chein kasav b'sefer Tilim ayidei David Melech Yisrael, toiv li teiras picha me'alfei zav v'chesed." Right? And one of the Perushim I saw beautifully. Why not? The chayra, if the guy is willing to pay, maybe he would have tremendous influence. Maybe the influence he would have, the guy's willing to give himself, he's giving him so much money, obviously they want him that bad. Maybe he would have a hashpah. And the answer is, if the yisoid is a yisoid that's dependent on gelt, it's ain't like him. The yisoid has to be a yisoid on Torah. If the yisoid of your moving, if the yisoid like the Rebbe would always write in the michtav to a chasna and kala, al yisoid ha-Torah va-mitzvah. If your binyan building a new home has a yisoid of Torah mitzvah, it's everlasting. If it's a yisoid of kol avanim tevis umagali shaba'ilam, saluft, it's coming and going. It's garnish vert. I want a yisoid of Torah mitzvahs. All right. So the stress is that we have to create a sviva. You have to find mokim rabbi. You have to find the sviva of a mokim Torah. That's where you choose to live. So there's a beautiful, wonderful sikha that it's pashit, a must for everybody to learn. There's two sikhas that speak about this concept. There's a sikha in Chelik Lamed Gimel, Amid 11, and a sikha in Chelik Yud Tes, Amid 62, where the Rebbe speaks about the concept of a shachin toiv. Now, the reason why I'm heading this direction is because we're speaking about the effect of you're looking where to choose to live. So, in our drasha here, we're saying you have to live in a Makom Torah. You're choosing a place where Eini Dar El B'Mkayim Torah. Why is it so important? Because your surrounding has a tremendous effect. Who says that? So we have this in many ways. Now, the Rebbe in Chelik, what did I say? In Chelik Lamed Gimel, Amid 11, says, the Pa'ula, I'm going to read B'Lashon Harav. The Rebbe says, the Pa'ula of a shachin, the Pa'ula of a neighbor on his neighbor is one of three ways. Matzinu kama oifanim, could be in many ways. Number one, Pa'ulas hashachin hi be'inin chitzayni legamri. It's just external. He's my neighbor. It really doesn't really affect me. For example, says the Rebbe, Kegoin shaschar shel hatzadik nimshach gam l'shchenoi. Sometimes when the neighbor is a good boy, if the neighbor is a tzaddik, sometimes the whole community benefits from the neighbor. Or, on the flip side, if the neighbor is wicked, if the neighbor is a rasha, everybody gets punished. We know lahavdil, that way also in taxes. It goes up, the whole neighborhood goes up, or the whole neighborhood goes down. And the Rebbe brings a raya lahavdil from the Gemara. The Gemara says in Masechta Sukkah, the konsil the whole mishmar kuloi, the whole mishmar of the koyanim got punished because of a situation of a Miriam, a Yiddish girl, Rachmana litzlan, that converted, Miriam Bas Bilga, that converted, and she said terrible things. So that whole mishmar got punished because something is fishy. If she behaved that way, everybody in that mishmar must be, something is wrong. So everybody got punished because of her. That is a trickle-down effect. One type of shochin. Beis, says the Rebbe, no, it's not a trickle-down effect. It's deeper a little. Pa'ulas hashochin, he pa'ula pnimius. A shochin it penetrates a little more. Koloimar, not only it's a trickle-down effect, shu mishana es oifen hanagase shel shchenei. Guess what? When my neighbor behaves certain ways, it actually, I start behaving that way sometimes too. Va'ad shemishana gamas mohusoi. When I see him behaving that way, eventually I behave that way. So it affects me. The first one is, says the Rebbe, it doesn't really affect me. I get punished because of him. The second one is, it affects me too. But then, number 3 says the Rebbe, Asach Tifer. And this is a gewaldige word. When you are choosing a neighborhood to establish your home, why would a person choose a place like Harlem? Why would a person choose a certain neighborhood? You know why you are choosing that neighborhood? There is something of you that likes that neighborhood. There is a shtickle you in there. So you are that. Shchenus, says the Rebbe, Eina hasiba lazeh. It's not because he's your neighbor, that's why you became bad. You are actually like him. Elahu simon muhusay shalashachin. He's a reflection what you are. He's revealing what you are. Oy vavoy. So we have to make sure that we reveal he's reflecting our true inner, who we are, our pneumius. And the Rebbe has such beautiful lumdus in Chelik Yutes, Amid 62, with the Rebbe for Emfert, according to this, a shvera machloikis between Rashi and Rambam, how the punishment, and even in this Sikha, Chelik Lamed Gimel, the Rebbe for Emfert, shvera shailas, halachic differences, and how the einish of Miriam Bas Bilga, Rashi says, came out in one way, and the Rambam says came out in another way, depending how the levels of the shachin. So when a yid chooses where to live, remember, it reflects who you really are. Then there is another word. The Mishnah in Avos Perek Beis Mishnah Tes says, Amalehem Tzu'u Ure'u Eizehi Derech Tova Sheyidbak Ba'adam. What's a good midah? A derech tova that a person should choose. So there's the different Tanaim gave different answers. One said ayin tova, one said chaver tov, one said shachin tov. Now what's the difference between a chaver tov, a good friend, and a good neighbor? I would think that a good neighbor, a good friend is much better than a good neighbor, right? A chaver tov comes the Bartanura and says, you know what? A chaver tov, you don't always have him. He might be living in a different neighborhood. A chaver tov only gives you musar when he happens to be there when you're doing something wrong. A shachin tov is always there. He's a yenta. He's next door. He's matzui there by day and by night. And in Perek Aleph Mishnah Zayin, Nitai Harbeli says, Harchek mishachin ra va'al tischaber l'rasha. Now listen to the difference between the two lashonos. By a shachin ra, by a bad neighbor, it says harchek, run away. By a rasha, it doesn't say run away from a rasha. It says don't connect. What? By a rasha, I would have thought it would say, run away. By a neighbor, I would have said, just go across the street. It looks like a bad shachin is much worse than a rasha. So some Svarim say, no. That this is the proof that the effect of a Rasha, maybe he's here now, but he's the Shachan who sits there by the Kishkis. He's here always next to you. Harchek mishachin ra. You better be very careful who your Shachan is. The Rebbe, of course, the Rebbe's glasses, the Rebbe's vision, in Chelik Dalid, Amid 1182, only the Rebbe could say this. The Rebbe says, Harchek mi shachen ra. What's pshat? It doesn't say Harchek mi shach. Only the Rebbe could say this. It doesn't say Harchek mi shachen Russia. Maybe he's garnishing Russia. It could be he's not even a bad. He's not a Russia. He is Ra for you. You two clash. You two guys are not a good shidduch. So this is what the Rebbe is saying. There is avoida im atzmoi and there's avoida im hazulas. Im hazulas, because you two guys are not a good match. Harchek, he's not a Rasha. It's as a shachen he is Ra. So harchek mishachin Ra. And for him, you have to stay away. But Speter, as a deal with, and you don't have to, Val tischaber le Russia doesn't say you have to run away from him. Or even the Russia, the Rebbe says you have to. I don't want to say the word kirov. You have to. You have to do what we do. In Alter Rebbe Shulchan Aruch, let's bring two halachas. I know that the Ma'argnin don't like when you go way over time. B'makom she'amru laharich, v'lekatzer i'atar rashay laharich, right? Reb Yehuda, correct? If you're still there. I'll bring two practical halachas because I'm doing way too much Agadata today. Reb Yehuda, you still there? And the Alter Rebbe Shulchan Aruch Orach Chaim, correct. Which part? The Agadata part or the Kitzer? And Orach Chaim Siman Tzadik Seif Yud Aleph. The Shulchan Aruch says, Mi sheyesh le beis hakneses be'iroi. If somebody has a shul in his community, and he doesn't walk into daven in the shul, that's a shachen ra. It's a funny title. You want to know what the definition of a shachen ra? If you have a shul in your community and you don't go into to daven in that shul, he's called a shachen ra. And then Rachmana Litzlan, it says bad things. And the Be'er Heitev and Sifkat and Yudches says, even if there is no minyan in shul, you got to go daven in shul, and if not, you're a shachen ra. And the Alter Rebbe in Sif Yud says, La'olam, in Siman Tzadik Sif Yud says, La'olam yishtadel adam l'spala b'beis hakneses and matzibur. A person should always go to shul and daven with a minyan, even if he has a minyan in his house, because Roiv Am Hadras Melech. V'gam ain't tefillah shel adam nishmas ela b'beis hakneses. Shenemar lishmoya el arina ve'el tefillah. And he's called a shachin toiv. So I want to be Messiah with one halacha. So we shouldn't only be a Gada Tashir, should be a halacha, and Azevet Zayin Halichis Olam. There is a tzavah from Reb Yehuda Chassid, and this, which is a general shaila, which in Yonam of Reb Yehuda Chassid we keep, and I'll show you that even this, the Chassam Sofer discusses if we keep it today. Reb Yehuda Chassid, and Tzavas Reb Yehuda Chassid Ois Tezayin, says that a person should not build a bayis shel avanim. You should not build a stone house. A stone house is a definition of a permanent, strong house. A person should not build it. And Rachmana Litzlan, he scares you with bad things if it happens, if a person did do so. The Chassam Sofer in Yoreh De'ah Siman Kuf Lamed Ches, and if you look in Shulchan Aruch, it's brought in Pischei Tshuva, Yoreh De'ah Siman Kuf Ayin Tes Sifkat and Dalid. He says this, and he says that if anybody is worried about this Reb Yehuda Chassid, And there's actually a tradition that says that those who want to get around this Rabbi Yehuda Chassid and they are building a stone house, you should know that what they do is they build the stone house and they don't move in right away. What they do is they bring in a chicken, a male chicken, a female chicken, and they shecht it there. So the first things that go in there is livestock, on animals, and they kill it. So or whatever spooky, Kabbalistic, non-nishkin gewunschene Sachen is supposed to happens to the chicken. It's like kaparis. So so this is what's to correspond to the tzavah of Rabbi Yehuda Chassid. So again, the Chassam Sofer says, if you do that, fine. It's best if you don't worry about this, because these are dvarim shalei huskru b'shasu poiskim. These are not inyanim that are mentioned in shasu poiskim. V'loi Rabbi Yehuda Chassid chasim alel. And I don't even know if Rabbi Yehuda Chassid is really signed off in this. And especially, listen to this, and this is why I want to misayim with this halacha. It could be, this Kabbalah maybe. It could be that Rabbi Yehuda Chassid only said this because he doesn't want people to build permanent houses in Galus and to be misyayish from the Geula. He does. If you're building a permanent stone house, it will be misyayish mina Geula. That's a sakana. But if you're building homes, pashut for survival, and that's what Kanai Nahara, our family, needs, and if you are making it in a neifen of chinuch for Torah utfila, you're allowed to. That's the opinion of the Chassam Sofer, and the Shalah in the end of Masechta Sukkah also says this, and Shlomo Zalman Auerbach held that the Chatchila it's best not to. And the b'di'evad, if you built a stone house, you should do this chicken business. But again, that's only not to be misyayish min ha'geula. And if you need it for your family, this only applies for stone houses, which is a symbol of permanent houses, and it only applies for luxurious homes. But if you're building a Chabad house, or if you're building a Mokim Torah, a Mokim Tefillah, a Beis HaKnesses, a Beis HaMedrash, which is a Mikdash Ma'at, which is something which is coming with us to the Beis HaMikdash, Hashlishi b'mheira v'yameinu, the Beser, the Shenera, Zek Heli Van Veyu. May it be b'mheira v'yameinu. Amen.